Happy anniversary, Greendale People's Church. 125 years ago, 4 individuals got together at what was at the time the Salvation Army Community Center, and they committed to create a new worshiping community, an unconventional worshiping community, one that was not connected to any particular denomination, one in which faith that was practiced was a practical spirituality which encouraged and inspired its members in order to make a lasting impact on the community, its city, our lives, and the world. From its inception, Greendale People's Church has always looked out for and had concern for those who were the most vulnerable. In the late 1800s and the early 1900s, it was women's rights and women's suffrages. So much a concern of the community that you'll find that one of the windows that was created in the sanctuary that was built in the late 1800s includes a celebration window to honor women of the Bible, far ahead of its time. In the 1950s, Greendale People's Church worked towards racial reconciliation. Having a passion and a concern for the people who are most vulnerable, Greendale People's Church partnered with a number of other primarily Anglo congregations as well as African American congregations in order to form an international fellowship called the ICCC, the International Council of Community Churches. Members of the congregation protested for civil rights. In the 1960s and 70s, it was concern for the elderly that led the congregation to create and form and run a series of nursing homes. At one time, the congregation even had a credit union in order to ensure that those who were having difficulty financing their homes and their houses and the purchases of their lives had credit that was available. That passion continues on with our Hunger Action Ministry, including our food pantry, monthly meals to the homeless through the Mustard Seed, as well as bagged lunches through Worcester Fellowship to the homeless who meet down on Worcester Common, as well as more recently, our monthly meals to Quinsigamond Community College students. I'm often asked what makes Greendale People's Church different than any other church. I think it is this unconventional, practical spirituality, love and faith in action, trying to make sure that the faith that we practice is open and inclusive to all people, wherever they may find themselves on their spiritual or their life journey, as well as applying that faith through the love and the stories and the teachings of Jesus in ways that we touch people's hearts, we change people's lives in the world, our community, our city, our relationship, and our lives are so much richer because Greendale People's Church is a part of it. As we celebrate this 125th anniversary, may it become the launch pad, not only to celebrate the foundation of our past, but also to build upon and take the first steps into a vibrant, wonderful, exciting future. May God continue to guide us. May Christ's light continue to help us to find the way. And may the spirit of love and hope in action continue to inspire us always. Happy anniversary, Greendale People's Church.
So Dottie and I joined GPC back in, I think it was 1999. So it's been about 20 years. And we joined because at the time we had a son who was playing football in West Boylston High School, and his good friend, Kevin, had his grandparents coming to the game. And so we were at the games together, and they were just nice people. And they are the Lawnroths, Rob and Rita Lawnroth. And so we enjoyed, sharing time watching their children and their grandchild play football. And so we had been going to several different churches, and Dottie happened to mention that, we were again looking for a church, that we wanted to find one. And so they mentioned Greendale People's Church, and we said, okay, well, we'll go, take a visit and see what we liked. And so we did. We started coming to the church, and as a result of that, we stayed. And so here we are, 20 years later. And one of the reasons that we liked GPC was it was a non-denominational church, and that was not paramount, but it was important to us because of our life experiences, I guess. I am Albanian, and so was raised in the Eastern Orthodox Church. Dottie's family tradition is from a American Baptist tradition. So those are very different, but still we're very compatible in how we see God and how we see Christ. And so the non-denominational ecumenical nature of the church was very appealing because of our experience and backgrounds. And so having found GPC and finding the people to be very warm and loving and caring and enjoyable to be around and being good servants of the Lord, we wanted to join them and get involved in church activities, and we have been ever since the beginning.
The first time I went to GPC was with Lynn. After I met her, I was going to different churches here and there, but I wasn't settled on any one church. So I first started going with Lynn, and almost every Sunday after that. So, and I stayed with the church. And we'll go into the next question, but that's when I first started going. It was, I think it was in March of 2010.
Oh, man, I've been a member since the mid-90s. At the time that I joined GPC, Barbara Loans and I were working together, and she knew that I was seeking a new church, and I could feel comfortable in talking to her about that because she was a very faith-filled person. And she knew that I was looking for a place that met me where I was, and didn't want to like change me, but more like honor the gifts that I had and the spirit that I had, and build upon that and do it in a loving fashion. And so I joined GPC, and I think that she set me on the right path. And I thank her for that. Thank you, Barbara.
I joined GPC in 1965 when Norman Jewers and I were married. He was going to Wesley United Methodist Church, and I had grown up in the Episcopal Church in Quincy, Christ Church, Quincy, where we were married. And at the time, Norm's mother, Eloise Jewers, was going to Greendale People's Church. And so we went, and we really enjoyed Reverend Bath and his sermons, and then met some of the people. And it was really it was as friendly then as it is now. The hospitality is the key idea, philosophy of Greendale People's Church, as I think we're all well aware. And so we stayed, we got involved in the couples club, and we did the couples club shows were a big thing during that time. And then as the children came along, I got involved in the Sunday school. And so I stayed, and one thing and another, and here I am this many years later. And I still love being part of Greendale People's Church.
I joined because of Charlotte. It was while we were dating. I was, we discussed it, what are we going to do where we're a different religion? And so we decided to go to my church first and then go to her church and kind of compare. And boy, was I in shock when I came to our new church, where we are now.
Your new church.
You're right. And I was totally surprised at the people. First of all, I was greeted at the door, and then going in, Charlotte, of course, knew everybody, and she's waving and talking, and I'm trying to get her to be quiet because back in our day, we didn't talk shit, you know. We just went in and sat, and nobody talked, nobody looked, and here she is doing everything different and talking and waving at people, and I'm trying to get her to shh, you know. And she's saying good morning to everybody, and so the minister finally came and he said good morning, and everybody answered him. I couldn't believe it because, again, in our church, it would just be a one-way conversation. But here, I mean, everybody responded and answered, and yeah. But the people, I couldn't get over the people. They were so loving and caring, and it was, oh, and then coffee afterwards. We never, you know, we just get up and left. And coffee fellowship was awesome because I got to meet more people, and they just, you know, couldn't get over Charlotte. Oh, she's got a boyfriend. Oh, gee.
I don't think they thought I'd ever get one.
But I decided at that point, why would I ever want to leave our church? And so it didn't take long before I changed my religion and joined Greendale People's Church.
And I was brought up at the church. You know, my mom and dad went here. They lived on a couple of streets away. And it was always part of my life growing up. I was in the children's choir and the adult choir and just did a lot. My mom and dad didn't have a lot of money, but my mother always taught me that if you can't give monetarily, always give of your time. And so that was a good lesson. You know, you don't have to be rich to give. Our wedding, we were so broke that we had our reception there. And back then there were 5 protos. And I think it was Proto 3 put on the reception for us. And it was wonderful. You know, it wasn't fancy. It wasn't a lot of liquor or any of that kind of stuff. It was just
Nice.
friends and family, and very, very, very cozy, I guess, or whatever.
But I do remember one thing at the reception. After my father-in-law raised 4 girls, he finally shouted in front of everybody, I finally had me a son, which I thought was awesome.
I believe that the first time I came to the church, I was 2 years old. My father brought me to the church when I was 2 years old. And so that's going to be 67 years ago. And I've been there ever since. I asked him the other day, why did he and my mother pick Greendale People's Church? He said it had to do with her family. I guess she had been in youth group. And my first introduction to the church came shortly after their house, our house that we had been living in on Burncoat Street, was destroyed by the tornado. So in the aftermath of the 1953 tornado, my father and mother were searching for a faith home and found Greendale People's Church. And I've been there ever since. So I don't know if I'm the longest member. I know I'm not the oldest member, but I'm probably one of the longest members of the church. And I guess when you're young and you're growing up, you really have no choice. When Sunday morning comes, your parents say, you're going to church, you're going to church. So I went to church, and I was involved in Sunday school, and had a lot of wonderful teachers and a lot of wonderful experiences. And then as I remember specifically, as I was in junior high school, when I got to junior high school, most days after school, instead of going home, I went to the church. Now, why did I go to the church? Partly it was because that's where my friends were. Okay, we would gather there after school every day, because it was a great place to go. It was a place where we could not have to worry about our brothers and sisters at home, things like that. Probably to get out of doing chores too. But we would go there every day after school, hang around, and we thought we were just hanging around, but actually what we were doing was we were being taught, we were being trained, we were being guided. And so then, youth group, and continued with Sunday school, youth conferences. It was just a place where I started, I never left. I never left. And I just think it's because it became my second home. And, I met my wife through the church. I was friends with her brother, who was part of our gang, and kind of became part of her family. And instead of becoming her brother, I became her husband.
Yeah.
And we taught Sunday school together at church, and we were the youth group leaders. We were married there in 1973. And it's been a very, very important part of our lives.
I moved into the neighborhood with my parents. We decided to try the church because it was near. We found it so friendly, and we loved Mr. Bath. And the second time we went back, he called us by our names. And all the people just seemed to want to be friendly with us, and the sermon was good, and so we joined the church. We liked the minister. We liked the people. They had a lot of things going on that eventually I became involved in. I don't know how long it was before someone got me to join Croto. And then Wilson and I got in the couples club, so that's why we wanted to stay. We just made so many new friends.
Well, I joined after, I wasn't raised at GPC like a lot of people were, but my grandparents attended GPC. My grandfather was the choir director, and my grandmother was involved in all the clubs, proto, and all that. But I was raised Catholic, and after I remarried, I moved back into the neighborhood, and I wanted to join a church, but get involved with a church. But I knew as a remarried Catholic, I wasn't going to be able to receive communion and all that. And that just didn't seem right to me. So I wandered into Greendale People's Church, and they welcomed me and my family with open arms. And I've been there ever since. That was 40 years ago. So, and why I stayed? I stay because of the fellowship and the acceptance for who we are as individuals.
I think the uniqueness about GPC, what we find is, it's ecumenical, so it's open to whomever would like to come. There's no prerequisite for coming. You want to learn about God and you want to learn about Christ, and so you're welcome to come, and we welcome everybody. And I think one of the things that unique is the fellowship of the congregation. We always found that to be special. It was important to feel connected, and when you're in the church and you're with other congregants in the church, and so you have a connection, the fellowship that you enjoy being with those people. and the various group activities that the fellowship provides. There's different groups for different interests, and so there are opportunities to gather and share life experiences with one another and share time together. The other thing that's important is the support that the church provides to the community in terms of, as a facility, we offer church space, meeting rooms to various groups that are in the community, the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, but also the Alcohol Anonymous, the Narcotics Anonymous, the Gamblers Anonymous, the various support groups that are helping people to deal with whatever addictions or problems that they may have. And so it's been a way of life ever since we started and long before us, I'm sure. And so that's a value added thing that I don't think a lot of other churches do, but it's important as a community church to serve our community. And the other thing is the community outreach that GPC does to combat the hunger issues that are out in the community. Of course, we have a small food bank that supports local people, neighborhood people that are in our zip code. And so, it's one way our congregation contributes in outreach to the community to support those that we can in the limited way that we can. And also we provide a meal monthly at the Mustard Seed, and that's an important outreach also. And the other thing is we make lunches and take to Worcester Fellowship on the Worcester Common, I believe once a month. So these are various outreach ways that the church supports the community through the support of the congregation. We're not getting outside resources. It's our church people doing this because we want to be servants of God and help all God's people.
I think, I lived in Natick, and I went to several churches in Natick, St. Lawrence, St. Patrick's. Other than knowing some of the parents and the families because of the kids going to school in Natick, we really didn't have any sense of community or any sense of friendship with the other people other than that. And the thing I liked about Greendale, once I met Lynn and started going there, I was like, wow, these people actually are friendly. They talk to you. Coffee fellowship, everybody gets together and talks, and it makes you a lot closer.
In my church tradition of my origins, it was kind of a cold place. When you would walk in, for example, for worship, there was no talking, there was no hugging, there was no handshaking, there was no sharing before we actually joined in the service. And that was, I think, the thing that caught me when I first walked through the doors. It was like, this is not something that I'm accustomed to at all. And isn't it beautiful? You could feel the Spirit. You didn't just have to believe that it was there because somebody told you that it was there. It was there because it was practiced. It was carried out. And as Al said, the coffee fellowship thing was something that I really enjoyed because in the, again, tradition of my origins, you would walk into worship, you would be quiet, you would go through the motions, through the symbolism and everything, which, believe me, is beautiful. But what followed afterwards is you would shake the minister's hand and walk out the door. And then you wouldn't see them for the rest of the week. There wasn't a lot of programmatic kind of things that were going on. And I think that the programs are what really makes us a community church, because we find so many ways of being the church out there, beyond the windows, beyond the doors. But we also do it by joining together in strength during the course of the week, as well as on Sundays during worship. It's like that part from the Bible that describes us as one body with many parts. It's really true here. It's truer here than in any other congregation in which I participated.
For me, it was always very down-to-earth people. There were bankers and people of different kinds of professions that were just part of the whole group, and a kind of egalitarian place, because, you know, we had, at that time, it was a little bit more traditional. I've become more feminist over the years, but that's okay too. As a matter of fact, one of the things about being in Greendale People's Church is I've grown a lot. I never expected to be a leader, but I did become the first woman to serve as the moderator when that was the structure of the church, and I never expected to be that. But I think that's what happens at a place like Greendale People's Church, where other people, really it was my friend Charlotte LeBlanc that nominated me and said, oh, you might be able to do this. And I had never thought about doing it. So I think that it's people there that are looking for the spiritual gifts. That's how I look at it. People that can see your spiritual gifts and say, I think you might want to, or you might not want to try it, but why don't you anyway? So those kinds of things, it's just the connections and the real sense of really beautiful, down-to-earth faith and love that people have for each other. We got into a hugging thing there for a while, and we still kind of, I mean, that's what a lot of people miss, because we're comforting and loving and caring, and we can't even be together right now. But I would say that that's really one of the special things about the church.
I can probably answer that, and the best way I can answer it is, I don't know, because I never wanted to leave. I just wanted to stay there and not wonder how the others were, or how they taught, or whatever, because I just loved it and started joining, and almost immediately participating in different things. And I joined the church, I don't know, it was a year later.
It'll be 54 years this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I have nothing to compare it with other than my old church. And believe me, it's like night and day.
I think it's the same. You know, I grew up here, and I went, and we moved to Sterling when our boys were young. We brought our children up at Greendale People's. And I can remember we talked about going to a local church, and our boys said, no, you can't go anywhere but Greendale People's. And so we always took the ride in, because back then there was no expressway. It was a ride, not a long one, but it was a ride. And because they had made so many friends, and I think friendship, caring is the most important part of Greendale People's Church.
Answering that question for seems like my whole life. And I always tell people, because I meet people out in the community, and they say, I've been to that church, and that's a really different church. Why is it so special? And I said, well, generally it's because if you come to service, if you come to worship, generally you'll leave feeling better than you did when you walked in the door. And there's no test to come in. You can come in, there's no judgment. You come in with all of your baggage, whatever it is, and nobody judges you. It's just a wonderful, loving place, I believe.
Oh, well, the one thing we liked was the fact that it's run by the people. We don't have somebody over us telling us what we have to do. We kind of get together as a congregation and decide a lot of our own ways. And I think that's So, and it just happens to be a very friendly church. Very loving.
I think because we are interdenominational, and what you bring with you and when you walk in the door is okay as far as your Christian faith is concerned, or non-Christian. We do have folks that are non-Christians that attend, and that's okay too. You know, we believe that our values are important to us as far as our Christian values or our spiritual values. And we don't have a head that tells us what we're supposed to believe and what we're not supposed to believe. So I think that's what's so incredibly special and different about us.
This is an interesting question. So what would I like to see is, of course, this is our 125th anniversary year. So what I would like is for us to celebrate this year with some new growth in the congregation. So I want to say that we're at the beginning edge of another 125 years, or at least another 25 or 50 years, so that we can continue this great fellowship that we have. It's been a community church, and we want it to remain a community church, and we want to continue to see it exist and grow. And so I would also like to see us keep, being able to do our outreach programs to support our community, and need to continue to provide religious services to the community for the unchurched population. One of the things that we do is baptisms of young families and newborns for families that are unchurched, or for various reasons, whatever those reasons are. I don't think we ask. If they want to need a religious service, then we've generally been able to provide that, and I certainly want to see us to continue that to the extent. I want us to remain an open and non-denominational community church. That's what brought Dottie and I here. That's what I want us to continue to be, welcoming to all people of our community who are seeking to serve the Lord, to know the Lord, to be a disciple of Christ, and to share our Christian values in the Worcester community and the wider Worcester community, Worcester area. So I just want us to be a place where we can say the people of Greendale People's Church are workers in the fields for the Lord. We are trying to be the hands and feet of Christ, serving our community in the ways that we can. We want to acknowledge God, and we want to acknowledge Christ as our Lord and Savior, and to continue to do that as long as God allows us.
I would say growth. And I think that it's I've seen it starting to grow a little bit. So I'm hoping that more people, and I know that Lynn's trying to do certain things to see what she can do to outreach, more so than me. I sometimes get caught up working a lot and doing other things, but Lynn really, she does this full time for a living, so she really enjoys, it's like if I don't come to church, Lynn is like you need to be there, So.
I'm with Al on the growth thing. In fact, I look back 125 years ago and I think of why people gathered. they wanted to have continued growth. They wanted a place where they could go to worship, to love God, to have friends and family in among the congregation, a place where they could serve back to the community, as well as people needed to find some love and support in their own right. I mean, they lived in very transitional times and revolutionary almost times as we are doing now. It's the same as it was at the turn of the century. I think what I see about this is that people want to find a way where they don't have to go it alone. And I see that as our strength that I think that we can really build upon. And, you know, it's like I said, hope is a big thing for me. It's sometimes in a hopeless and a very scary world, kind of like we're living through now. I'd like to see people be able to replace whatever challenges, whatever fears they have with the loving word of God that's delivered through his people, not only the loving word, but the actions, because we really carry it out here. For the future, I want people to have what I found here. And I can only express that by giving it away back to the community. So I see that if we're all together and spreading this good news in the context of today's world, again, we'll find that continued growth.
Oh my goodness, I know that like everybody, we really would love to see more young people, more children and families. And I really miss singing with the kids. That was towards the growing time of my experiences, and being part of the church family has been my love for music and singing, and to pass that on to the kids and to share it with them was really a great thing to do, until the Sunday school gradually diminished and changed. And so I missed that. But I would be hopeful that that will return. It will be somebody else doing things with the kids. Our current superintendent is great. Lee's doing a great job holding things together. But it would really be wonderful to, and I think it's because we share the love with these people that would really like them to know that we are a family. We're here. We have our issues with one another, but there's that overriding love that keeps us together, just like any other family. And when people need support and encouragement, that we're there. I just think there'd be something missing if Greendale People's Church weren't there to say, come on in. We love you. We want to help you if we can, and help you to grow, to know God's love, because that's where everything emanates from. And there's just a hopefulness in all of this that we would be there for the future. I think technology can do a lot to help us get there. But I still think we just need to be together, gather together. Worship services aren't going to look the same or be the same. I think they will be different because people are whatever they're looking for. I really need to see what they would love to do to bring them into the building, although I don't believe the church is the building, but that's where we gather for worship. And I think that's how we visualize we will be continuing to be in the building for as long as we can. But our services will probably look different, and that's fine. I think that we have to be open-minded and encouraging to those folks who want to come in and do things maybe a little bit differently. We do say we're unconventional, so maybe seeing what that means in terms of our worship services might be interesting. I think it could be a lot of fun, actually. So I hope it just grows and glows and fills the community with all the love we get to share.
I think I felt this way for years. It would be so nice if we can find a way to get young people back to church, or get the church to them. And I really, truly think that this is doing it. I think that we are being online. We're being proactive. We're out there in the public, and I think it's a wonderful thing. I really do. I think we're reaching so many people. And Raymond's been making some phone calls to people, and they're so happy to hear from them. It's been a good experience in so many ways. We're opening ourselves up, even though we didn't do it on purpose.
Obviously, I don't know if it's obvious. We keep saying we need to see more people come in the door. And that's a wonderful thing, and I believe it will happen. I think what we need to do more than anything else is continue to be who we were called to be, and that's to be the people's church, the church of the people. It's got nothing to do with the building. It's got everything to do with what we do outside the building. And I really believe that we've done that for 125 years. Sometimes we forget that we do it. And I think we have to remember that that's who we are, and that's who we were called to be. And that's actually what we're in the middle of doing right now, is being much more involved with things outside the walls. And sometimes it's difficult to figure that out, because you get so consumed with the building. And of course, I'm guilty of this, as many have been, because I was for so many years responsible for managing the building. And the building can be all consuming. Well, the building is just a place to come. It's not the end all and be all. What's the most important thing about Greendale People's Church is what we do outside those walls. And I believe that we're doing it every day as an organization and as individuals.
I would hope that we could get a new minister that would be at least half as good as Kevin is. I think it's almost impossible to get one that's as good. I wish that there's some way we could bring in more younger people, because the congregation is an old congregation and we need the help of the younger the people, but they just don't go to church. I'm hoping that the church will grow and not fade away. I love my church and the people. I couldn't ask for more friends than what I have now. And I hope we have a happy 125th, and I hope that some things do happen that are for the good.
Yeah.
I would like to see us be more of, or go back to being a community-based facility. I would like it, if we keep the building that we have, I would like it to be in service for others, and as opposed to a Sunday. I know we open our doors for a lot of folks, like a lot of AA groups and 12-step groups and the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts and that kind of thing. But I think our area needs more of a community gathering spot, and I would like to see that be us, whether it be feeding the hungry or just having community meetings or informational meetings or classes, that kind of thing.
Family of love.
Inclusive.
Warmth, everyone. Love, 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 love.
Our life.
3 words.
Community.
Family.
Forgiveness.
Fellowship.
Love.
And friends.
Community.
History.
Family.
My home.
Friends.
An acre.
Beautiful people.
Acre.
Peace.
Joy.
Grace.
Love.
Blessed.
Support.
Faith, hope, and love. Peace.
And
Soldiers of the Cross.
Whoa.
Nice.
Love in action.
Whoa.
It's good too.
Faith in action.
Power and prayer.
Strength.
It's definitely strength.
Musical.
Fun.
Family.
Definitely my home.
Giving.
Ethical spirituality.
Unconventional.
All inclusive.
Generational love.
I just want to say congratulations to Greendale People's Church as we celebrate our 125th anniversary. Certainly a milestone event, and I'm proud to be a member of our congregation. Thank you and happy anniversary, everybody.
25th anniversary, and to many more.
Happy 125th anniversary.
Happy
Happy one-
125th anniversary
Yes.
from both of us.
Happy 125th anniversary, Greendale People's Church. I love you.
Happy 125th anniversary, Greendale People's Church, and many more.
Happy 125th anniversary, GPC. Thank you for being there.
Greendale People's Church, we say happy 125th anniversary, and may we have another 125 years of an incredible ministry. To God who blesses you wherever we are on the journey.
Amen.
Amen.
Cheers.
Toast. Cheers.